We're the last of the cowboys. Giddy up, gone, boys. 18 wheels on the concrete. It's a slow and dying breed, rolling like Jesse James. A modern day outlaw gang. If you're out here riding with me, come on back and make some noise. We're the last of the cowboys. Saddle up, boys.
So we find ourselves out here near Bayport, Texas, and we're strolling along with an individual known as Benji Collins. Give us a rundown on what you got there and what you're working with.
My name's Benji Collins. I'm from Shooter, Louisiana. Just an old tanker yanker. 2015 Peterbilt glider, Detroit. 305 wheelbase, 600 horse Detroit, 13 speed, 355 rears. Pretty new shiny Polar trailer. Just doing that deal.
Well, it looks like you've been doing the deal quite well. Why don't you tell me how you got into the world of pulling tanks? Let's take us back. Let's get a little history on you.
Well, it all started when I was a little boy. That's what Daddy done. That's all I know. Grow up to be like Daddy.
Growing up, seeing what your dad did, I guess he pulled tanks as well. Give me a little backstory there on your dad and how that affected you, and when you actually got into the seat.
Yeah, when I was a kid, Daddy, the big oil boom back in the 80s was going. He drove vacuum truck. Then after the big oil boom kind of played out, he got into hauling propane, LP gas and stuff. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. I went with him every time I got a chance. I was in the truck with him, and it was just something I always wanted to do. I mean, that was where I wanted to be.
So about what age was that you finally got into the seat of a truck?
I was, probably 16, 17 years old. I mean, even back with my dad driving. He's the one that taught me how to do it, and every time I rode with him, I always got a chance to drive. And I knew that's where I needed to be at. He taught me the right way, the old school way. Well, I worked for several people through the years, hauling gasoline and propane and chemicals, and went to work for a fellow south of Jackson, Mississippi, Mr. Don Clyburn, with Clyburn Tank Lines. By far one of the best jobs I ever had. And I worked for him for a long time hauling gasoline. I always wanted to, he's kind of like my idol. I wanted to be like him. I finally got to the point where I had my own trucks, and I found a little deal to get in on some hauling with tanker trailers, and I bought a couple, and I leased some fellas on, and I looked at him, and I wanted to be like him. I wanted to get my business going. I wanted to be the same type of boss he was. You got to have a role model, I guess.
It's hard to do something on your own, but when you have a mentor, someone who's willing to answer some questions, to pick up the phone when you call, those things really can help a guy along.
I've had a lot of people show me a lot of things. You call, they pick up the phone, you talk to them, they'll help you out.
You got an individual riding along with you today. I'm going to pitch off to him. We know him as Mr. John Campbell. Give us the backstory on yourself, and how'd you land yourself in the seat of Mr. Cullen's truck today?
I'm John Campbell, and I'm the chairman of Transcourt Tank Leasing. We're a company based just outside of Toronto, Canada. We have depots and yards where we can service anywhere in the United States and Canada. In the United States, we operate out of Houston, New Orleans, and Chicago area.
Tell me about the variety of tanks that are available, the equipment types, and how a person would go about getting their hands on one.
Well, we're unique in the fact that we are in almost every category of tankers. We don't do anything really in any other area except tankers. So that runs from a fairly standard chemical tanker with tandem, 2 sets of wheels, and right up to some equipment which in chemical field we would go even as many as 6 axles. We also are heavy in the crude oil industry, mainly in Western Canada, where we run a lot of B trains. We're into dry bulk, everything from the plastics industry to cement, fertilizer, you name it. Everything that we build as if it's going to be around for 20 years. The reason for that is really we want to cut down on the maintenance. That's been one of our founding principles from the time we first looked at the industry.
With that in mind, how did you get into the tank industry? Of all the other equipment types in industry, why tanks?
Well, I had no intention of getting into the tanker industry. It started out of a desire to get into the leasing business, primarily of high-end used cars. There was nobody meeting a need in the, say, 3-year-old Mercury Marquis, 3-year-old Lincolns, Jags, BMWs. Somebody wanted a new car like a Ford Taurus or a Chevy Impala, something like that. They could walk in and virtually walk out with the car the same day. But if you might prefer a low mileage 3-year-old car, you had to arrange your own leasing. So that's actually what I was studying. Bruce Decourt, who is the president of Transcourt, his background is finance, and he just happened to be available at a time when I was wanting to study this market. Bruce walked in one day and he said, hey, I want to show you something. I know you're interested in leasing, but I want to show you something what I think is a whole lot more interesting than used cars. I don't know why he didn't like used cars, but anyway, he liked tankers, and as soon as he drew out his sort of basic plan and as to why this was a better asset to invest your money and develop a leasing business, the fact is that it doesn't wear out in 3 years. It really attracted me. And then I started to find out that tankers are one of the few assets that really are considered 20-year assets. They're still worth probably 25% of their value when they're 20 years old. I studied engineering at a Polytechnical Institute and intended to fully work my life in that industry. But it just happened that one of the things, when I did my thesis, I did it on metal fatigue. And I knew that aluminum and stainless steel and your specialty steels were more susceptible to frequency failure. What I observed with some of the damage that was evident on some of the tanker companies, people who were running them, was that because they run a higher percentage of deadhead miles compared to a normal trucking with dry box freight and so on, it's that pounding that does most of the damage, and you get your brakes, and metal is fatiguing. And the strange part of it is that the answer was already there. You just run air rides, and when you're deadheading, you're not pounding the back end of the tractor, you're not pounding the back end of your suspension. And so I said, why aren't you guys using air rides? And the answer was, well, you're going to get the same money whether you're running brakes or running air rides. And I said, I don't know. How much is it going to cost? Well, on a tandem at the time we started, it was probably $4,500. So I said, well, can you get $50 more a month for an air ride? Well, nobody knew. So we just kind of added that. And we came to the conclusion that, yes, you can get $50 more. And things like ABS wasn't mandatory, but ABS on a tandem was, I think, $2,500 or something in that. And I said, man, even if you flat spot 8 tires, which is going to happen, you have to lock it up somewhere along the line, there's your return right there. So, we just kept adding stuff like that.
Well, that's certainly really impressive. It's impressive to know that you really studied the metallurgy of tanks. That really goes a long way when you're putting together a product and you want people to be able to use the product and have the longevity of 20 years. So that's really impressive. So, Mr. Campbell, I would love to know some of your other achievements in relationship to the world of trucking and outside of the world of trucking.
Well, I guess the greatest lessons that I learned were growing up poor. That's kind of where you develop the ambition not to end up that way. And I started out, in my first venture was trailers. Now, not like the tanker trailers you have now. These were these folding camping trailers, which were coming out in the 60s. And then I got transferred out, so I had to sell that, but I kind of liked the transportation thing. And then later when I went on business, I had a chance to buy into this international freight company, and we were moving freight all over the world, but primarily into Latin America. That's where we specialized. So we built then from Toronto and then also from the Montreal and Quebec area, built a land bridge to run between Canadian cities and Florida ports. I had a joint venture going all through Central America where I could deliver from any place in Canada. I'd give people a through bill of lading right to the door in Tegucigalpa or San Pedro Sula or Guatemala City, wherever they wanted to. It was a great system. Then a big company came along, was part of their growth pattern, and they bought me out. But by that time I had invested in a lubricant, a product called Slick 50. We built that up and sold that 21 years ago to Quaker State. They wanted the product. They were buying it up all over the world, and we owned the Canadian rights, as well as a number of other countries that we were dealing with. So I was too young to retire, didn't want to retire, and then got into studying it and ended up really in the tanker business. And to my knowledge, we're now the largest, certainly in Canada, and we're growing in the United States. And the plan is to continue to grow it.
Well, that's really great. I mean, you really painted a really nice, clear picture of how the world of leasing, when it comes to tanks and things, how that works. Would you call yourself a pioneer in the leasing business when it comes to tankers?
Yes, some of it was trial and error, but most of it is just standing back and trying to look at it from the customer's point of view. And one thing that I learned in the transportation segment before was that a happy driver means a happy dispatcher, and a happy dispatcher means a happy owner. And we just try to deal with every problem and remember that we're trying to please everybody from the driver right through to the owner. And eventually, if you do that, it ends up on the bottom line.
So last question for you. When it comes to philanthropy, I was told that you guys do a lot for others. So why don't you give us an idea of what you do for others?
Well, both Bruce and myself we would call ourselves committed Christians. We don't wear it on our shirt sleeves, but we believe that it means giving back. And so a lot of the stuff that we do has to do with giving back, trying to make the world a little better place, try to ease the stress on people's lives. And Bruce is very involved with Youth Unlimited in the city of Toronto, working with the marginalized youth. So he serves on their board, and he does a lot of things like that. He has a school in Africa that he was able to give some direction to so that they could make that happen. Most of my time, as far as commitment, has been in the area of humanitarian aid. I spend a lot of time with Medical Ministry International, do short-term medical projects. I generally try to work one or two myself. I generally will do the large eye projects. This year in Colombia, we were seeing close to 600 people every day, doing probably 50 operations with a team of North Americans, Canadians, and United States people of 50 to 60 people, plus the national Colombians, and that is for eyesight. So the main problem is cataract operations when people are blind, and we give them back their sight. The rest of it is, a lot of it is people in the developing world and poor people. They have to pay about the same as you would in North America for a prescription pair of glasses. So we collect about 1 million pair of prescription eyeglasses that people donate when they've got their new glasses. These are all categorized, and we have a very sophisticated computer program which allows us, when we know what their prescription is, to pick out a pair of glasses out of 10 or 12,000 that we have with us. And we're dispensing around 400 pair of glasses each and every day.
That's really impressive. I know that you must feel really good about what you're able to do for folks all across the world. I can't even say that it's commendable. That's really remarkable. I'm proud to know a person like yourself that has been able to put themselves in a position to help others that way. We got a little bit more riding to do just yet, so I'll be throwing some questions at Benji there about the culture of tank hauling. Now, Benji, did you know that you had such an accomplished gentleman that's been responsible for the culture of the tank industry in the seat next to you?
Oh no, never knew this day would come. Never knew I'd meet somebody that important.
Yes, sir. Well, it's been great to learn about that from a different perspective. A lot of times we talk to guys that are in the seat behind the steering wheel. It's nice to talk to someone who made the culture and the ability to get our hands on this equipment available. So with that in mind, Benji, if somebody wanted to get behind the wheel and get into the tank industry, what are some of the things that you would suggest to a guy that wants to start pulling a tank? What do they need to learn?
Well, they need to learn the world of trucking first. I mean, this is not something that you just go jump in a truck and do it. I mean, you really need to know what you're doing in a truck, how to maintain a truck, how to know how that load's going to act. You know, pulling this tanker is way different than pulling anything else, because that load is steadily on the move back there. 1 minute of not paying attention, it will, really cause a problem. If you want to pull a tanker, you need to be dedicated to it more than anything.
Well, I do understand that. Yes, it's a situation where, like you said, the material is constantly on the move. Kind of break down some of those things that you deal with on a daily basis with the materials that you haul. What's your mindset in some situations?
Well, you got to realize I got a family at home, and I'm going to go home at the end of the day and see them, or at the end of the week, or the end of 2 weeks, or 3 weeks that I'm out. And you got to know what you're hauling. You don't know what you're doing. You got to think of people around you. Product that I usually pull in my trailer is 11.6 to 15 pounds a gallon, so you're only half loaded most of the time, and you're still weighing 80,000 pounds. So there's a lot of movement there. You gotta have a mindset to pay attention to everything around you. You can't make no sudden moves.
You can't make any sudden moves. So again, for that guy who really is curious about pulling a tank, what do you mean by you can't make any sudden moves?
Well, for every action, there's a reaction. And liquid in motion tends to stay in motion. That's really two of the biggest things I can tell you. If you always keep that in the back of your mind, you'll be all right. But if you jerk the steering wheel to the left, the product's going to the right. If you slam on the brakes, the product's going forward. If you slam on the gas, the product's going backwards. You've got to know what your product's doing in your trailer.
That makes a lot of sense. Inertia is probably your friend and also your enemy.
Yeah. And I said, when you start hauling the tanker, you make a lot of mistakes. Once you learn, if you'll pay attention to that load and let it teach you how to drive that truck, you'll do a lot better with it. But if you try to tell that load what it's going to do, it's not going to work. I mean, you've got to let it teach you what to do, and then it's your friend.
Now, safety-wise, you haul a lot of different products. You mentioned some of those products that you haul. When it comes to safety, what are some of the things that you have to do to keep yourself safe?
Oh, Lord. Nowadays, the biggest safety issue we have on the road is people not paying attention on their cell phones, really and truly. That's really our biggest safety issue nowadays.
So are you saying it's not so much what you're hauling or loading and unloading, but it's on the road? You got more road hazards in the form of people that aren't paying attention?
Exactly. Products we haul, whether it be hazmat or not, we've got, safety precautions that we follow. For the most part, you don't really have any problems with products other than a drip or a little minor spill. You've got means and methods to clean it up. We've got the materials that we need as far as our PPE and the plants that we load in. They can take care of just about any problem arises. They can help you, and then once you put it out here on the road, You know, as far as this truck and this trailer and this load, I can maintain my truck, my trailer and load. I know what I'm doing, but it's hard to predict what everybody else is going to do.
Like you said, you know what's going on there inside your workspace, but everybody else different situation. All right, well, Benji, thanks a lot for coming out today and pulling the Transcourt trailer around for us to really get a chance to understand what the company's all about, and of course to understand you and who you are and what you do for the industry. Mr. Campbell, it certainly was a pleasure getting to meet you and understand what you do for the industry of tanks.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Well, thanks, Chris. This has been fun. It's been very educational, too, riding around. Don't get a chance to see this part of the industry. So thanks again, Chris. Bye for now.
Hey, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure.